I will be reading Something About Hensley's by Patricia Polacco. There was just something about Hensley's. You see, no matter what a body may need, you're sure to find it there. Why, they have everything from clothespins to model airplanes, antiques to fiddle strings, makeup to hornet spray to scrumptious candy counters filled with goodies. On any given day, townsfolk gather there. They just find themselves leaning back and talking to old John Suncrant himself. He owns Hensley's now. Sometimes patrons linger there, not even knowing why. Now, patrons is just another word for customers, clients, shoppers. One thing is old John is downright magical, or so folks around here think so. He's the heart of that store. He has warm eyes that crinkle and dance, a sweet smile, and a comforting hug for whomever may need one. And it doesn't matter what anyone comes in to buy, old John always has it. Why, there was the time Thelma Mosswood came in all in a dither. Does anyone guess or know what dither means? Crazy? Well, maybe, but dither actually means in a state of agitation. So she was upset about something. So let's read on to find out what it was. I have a catastrophe, Mr. Suncrant, she said. My bridge club is coming today, and I need one more place setting of garden rose dishware by noon. It's a discontinued pattern, and no one has it. I've been everywhere. No sooner had her words hit the air than old John was holding up 2 boxes of garden rose dishware. Why, that's the very thing, Miss Mosswood said breathlessly. And then there was the time that Tommy Ivo dashed into the store all out of breath and vexed with botheration. Mr. Suncrant, I have my track meet in 15 minutes and the cleats just broke off of one of my track shoes. No sooner had Tommy said it than old John was holding a shoebox. But what a shame, Tommy, he said. There's only one track shoe in here, and I don't rightly know what could have happened to the other. Tommy took the box. It's the left shoe, Mr. Suncrant, exactly the one I need. And it's my size. Why, it's the very thing. Tommy Ivo won his race that day. And who doesn't know about the day that little Sally Turnbow came into the store so worried that it took 4 handfuls of gumdrops to calm her down? She had broken her mother's favorite lamp and didn't know what to do. Mama said that was the only lamp like that in the whole world, she wailed. Old John went into his back room and he came out holding a very unusual lamp. Was it something like this? He asked. Why, that's it, Sally exclaimed. It's the very thing. One day, 2 little girls came timidly into the store. They pressed their faces up against the candy case. Can I help you with something? Old John asked them. We're just looking, the older girl said nervously. We don't have any money, the younger one blurted out. Old John smiled. He had heard a mother had moved into town with 2 little girls alone. I'm Molly, the older one said, and this is my little sister Kate. How about I give you both a bag of candy to welcome you to Union City, old John said, as he stepped behind the candy counter and shoveled delicious morsels from the bins with a metal scoop. I have the very thing for you, a bag of licorice for you, Molly, and a bag of caramels for you, Kate, and a bag of chocolate-covered cherries for your mom. Old John smiled. Don't be strangers now. You 2 and your mom. Come see me anytime. You can find anything here at Hensley's, don't you know? From that time on, Kate and Molly made Hensley's a regular stop on their way home from school. Molly perused the books for sale at the back of the store. Kate dreamed over the stuffed gingham kittens. Perused means to read something very thoroughly and carefully, which means that she would have paid very close attention while she was looking at all the books for sale. "I'll bet you'd like a real little kitten, wouldn't you, Kate?" old John asked one day. "Always," Kate said wistfully, "but Molly's allergic to them." "Does your mother know that there are shots Molly could take, so you could have a kitty and it wouldn't bother her?" old John asked. Well, we're renting," Kate said. "We can't have any pets." Mr. Suncrant thought there was more to her story. One day, a sweet, exuberant woman bounded into Hensley's. "Mr. Suncrant, I'm Mary McCafferty. Kate and Molly are my girls." She thrust her hand toward old John. "They sure love coming into the store." Mrs. McCafferty shook old John's hand vigorously. Then she looked at her watch. "I wonder where they are now. I was supposed to meet them here, and we were going to have an early dinner at the diner." She rechecked her watch. So we know that the word checked means to examine something for its accuracy or condition. And so if we look at that prefix re, and we know that re means again, so what can we predict that the word rechecked means? Right, she checked her watch again. Just then the front door of the store crashed open and Kate came bursting in. "Mama, Molly can't breathe," Kate cried. Mary rushed over to the door and found Molly wheezing and gasping for air. "Now wait," Mr. Suncrant said as he helped Molly and her mother to the back of the store. "I have a steamer. I'll set it up right away." Mr. Miller, the village pharmacist, was in the next aisle and looked around the corner. "Does she have a rescue inhaler?" Molly's mom shook her head no. "I can run and get one right now, but I need a prescription." About then, a round, jolly-looking man peered out from the fishing rods. "I'm a doctor. Perhaps I could be of assistance," he said as he took a stethoscope from his bag. "I'll need that inhaler, a nebulizer, and a chest pack pronto." So by show of hands, who in here has ever been really sick and they've had to get a breathing treatment? Okay, a couple of you. Well, a nebulizer is the thing on the breathing treatment that sends up that fine mist of that medicine in the air that helps your lungs get healthier. He drew a syringe, filled it from a small vial, and gave her a shot. She should breathe much easier now. In no time, Molly could breathe. Molly's mother looked at the doctor. I can't pay you, doctor," Mrs. McCafferty said. Her eyes filled with tears. Old John took the doctor aside. "This little family seems to be having such a hard time, doctor," Mr. Suncrant began. "But I can plainly see that you're a champion fisherman. I saw you admiring the antique rod and reel in the front window." The doctor nodded yes. "Well, sir, I have this here old tackle box stuffed clean full of the finest fly lures there ever were." The doctor's eyes widened. "They're all hand-tied, don't you know, each one of a kind." "Are you offering those lures to me?" the doctor asked as he tried not to show how much he wanted them. Old John nodded. The doctor pondered for a moment. "Tell you what. You throw in that antique rod and reel, and going forward, I'll treat that child free of any charge," the doctor said. "Done deal, doctor." Old John beamed. They went over to Mary and the girls. "I'm Dr. Case, Mrs. McCafferty. You bring your girl over to my office in Coldwater tomorrow. We'll do everything we can to get Molly's asthma under control." Mary cried and hugged Dr. Case. Then she hugged old John, and finally her girls. "I told you, Mama," Kate said. "Hensley's has everything." even a doctor to help Molly. After that, Mary was a believer in Hensley's. She too became a regular. One night she stayed late just to talk to old John. She told him the whole story, that the girl's father had left, that she was a single mom and a college student, and that her landlord had raised her rent for the second time in a year. I just don't know what I'm going to do. Old John said, "Things will change for you, Mary. I can feel it." One day she stopped in. Mary noticed old John clearing off a whole section of shelves. "Always wanted to sell genuine hand-painted pottery. Don't you reckon the store needs something like that?" Old John asked Mary with a twinkle in his eye. Mary looked surprised. "But, John, did you know I used to be a potter? I threw my own pieces, designed and painted them too." "Shoo! You don't say! You a potter?" Mary smiled and nodded. "Well, Mary, you're exactly what I'm looking for. You don't suppose you could make some for me? Maybe I could sell some of your pottery right here at Hensley's." "Oh, John, it's been years. My pottery wheel is in storage. Besides, I'd need a kiln to fire the pieces, and I don't have one anymore." So, let's look at the word kiln. Does anyone know what the word kiln is? A kiln is a furnace or an oven that you use in pottery to bake the pottery and harden it so they can paint it. Old John's eyes twinkled as he led Mary downstairs, through the antique store, and then through a back room. In the corner of the furnace room, he pulled a tarp, and there it was, a kiln. "I traded old Lawn Fury for it 2 years back. He even threw in all of these glazes." John pointed to rows and rows of color. "Do I dare dream?" Mary whispered. "It would be a dandy way to earn that extra money you need, wouldn't it?" Old John sang out. Mary thought for a time. "Mr. Suncrant," Mary said dreamily, "I think we're in business." Well, sir, Mary set up a studio right there in Hensley's basement. Pretty soon people were coming from far and wide to buy her one-of-a-kind dishes, platters, teapots, and mugs. Before long, she had a thriving business. She called it All Fired Up. She stayed in school all right, got her teaching credentials, and got a job teaching. With that and the sale of her pottery, she and the girls were able to buy a sweet little house with a big front porch and a hanging swing. Hensley's, of course, had the perfect paint colors, the exact wallpaper, and just the right curtains for the windows. Always the very thing that was needed to make a house a home. Molly, Kate, and their mom had everything they wanted. Almost. One day, Molly and Kate marched into Hensley's on their way home from school. Kate had something on her mind. "Everybody in my family got just what they needed at Hensley's, Mr. Suncrant. What do I need?" Kate asked. "Here, Kate, you need this basket, and Molly, you need this step stool," old John said. The girls looked puzzled. "And when you leave the store, take High Street home." "But High Street is 2 blocks out of my way," Molly grumbled. "Take it anyways, girls," he said as he whisked them both out the front door and popped chocolate raisins into each of their mouths. "This basket is heavy," Kate whined as she dragged it along. "This step stool isn't exactly light, Kate," Molly snapped. About then, the tiniest sound seemed to be coming from directly above them. They looked up. At first they didn't see anything, but they heard it again, a faint little cry. The leaves rustled and moved. Now the word rustled means it's like the slow, almost crackling sound. So I want you to close your eyes and imagine the sound of leaves rustling. And I want you to use your arms and your hands, and I want you to pretend like you're those leaves and you're rustling so you know that movement and sound. Okay, open your eyes back up. That's when they saw, barely clinging to a branch, a tiny, fluffy, sweet little kitten, not 2 blocks from Hensley's. "Do you suppose this is the very thing?" she said. Molly quickly set up the step stool, climbed up, and rescued the little kitten. Kate held her basket as Molly gently dropped the kitten in, and then it purred and nestled into Kate's arms as if it were meant to be there. "Oh, Molly, Mr. Suncrant, why, it is the very thing," Kate said as she stroked its wee little head. "Kate," Molly whispered, "if we hadn't had this basket and the ladder, and if we hadn't come this way, we wouldn't have found this kitten." Then they looked at each other. "Hensley's," they whispered in awe. Well, Kate and Molly named that little cat Hensley, and do you know, they love the little kitten so much that from that time on, whenever they thought about their dad being gone, they were filled full of so much love that they didn't feel sad anymore. They found out what everyone in Union City knows. There's something about Hensley's, and Old John too. They also know there isn't anything you can't find at Hensley's, and whatever that may be, it will always be the very thing. So, throughout this book, we've heard that, quote, "the very thing," more than once. So, the very thing, that means, it was the exact object that they just needed. So, if there was something very special that you just needed, it was the very thing, what are some other words that you could use to describe that kind of object? A treasure? Good. Valuables? Yes, very good. A keepsake? Great. Those are all good examples that we can use to label something very special, that very thing. Okay, guys, that was great, and I hope you enjoyed Something About Hensley's by Patricia Polacco.